All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from It's Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, July 1st, first of the month, and pretty impressive gap up today, and then I would say also impressive move down today. So it was really one of those days that we see frequently when we have a gap up day. People kind of come in, they get all excited. With the S&P started the day up 1% or a little bit above 1%. Got going and kind of hung in there the first 15 minutes of the day, but finished the day. What did S&P futures finished up 80 basis points? SPY was right around there, up 90 basis points. So altogether a pretty nice day for a trading view. It's good just to kind of have some patience on days like this. I mentioned we do our pre-market session at 9 o'clock. I was talking about how I would definitely be a net seller, looking to take off as many things as possible. And the way I kind of look at this and what I went over in the pre-market session was, anything very short-term options. Those are the first ones that I want to hit first. And if you have a little bit of experience with this, it's kind of a little bit of muscle memory. It's the same type of drill, right? You have a playbook to execute when the market gaps up. You have a playbook to execute when the market gaps down, and then there's a whole bunch of other things in between. But I've said this before. I think the last time that we got a gap up, I always will go for the option positions with the shortest duration if I've got anything on a week out, or that was like a catalyst type trade. Those are the first to go, and then I kind of go out to those intermediate swing options, and then I actually took off a couple stock positions too into the strength, which I think is fine too. Some names that I've been kind of holding on to for a couple weeks, and got to take them off at around 52-week highs. So that's perfect, and that's kind of all that you can ask for, I think, on days when we start up 1%. My opinion, I thought we were up a little bit too much going into the open. I didn't really understand it. I thought that we would be up. When I was writing the weekend newsletter and doing the video for the weekend, I thought that we had a good chance to be up like about a 0.5%, 60 basis points. I thought the market kind of priced in. I think that the expectations were that there was going to be some type of a truce. It seemed like it was going that way, but maybe there was a little bit of surprise with the Huawei announcement that Trump made, that the semiconductors. I think mostly the semiconductors can continue to sell to them, and that really drove that group up. That group opened up about 4% for the day, and this is very negative looking, by the way, so please bear that in mind when you look at my spreadsheet. This is the percentage day for the day. This is most important, right? Is where you finish for the day, but this is just good for like behavior. It kind of helps me, looking at this on a daily basis. Remember, the overnight moves are where most of the action happens. During the day, it's really tough, I think, to, unless you're really, really good at scalping and finding the names that might catch a little bit of momentum to them. Option activity is a great indicator for that. I'll go over, maybe 5 trades that we saw today in option activity where they were actually buying and not selling. I think for the most part, what we saw today was a lot of selling of positions, rolling of positions, right? So a lot of call sellers or a lot of positions that were being rolled. We talked about that in the morning session as well. But it really kind of helps me visualize this when I put a spreadsheet behind it. So you could see, for example, just the index moves, right? Definitely Qs performed the best, but small caps gave back. They did finish up on the day. They finished up 40 basis points, but at one point they were down 1% on the 1% from the open, right? So they really came in pretty hard. So it tells you, like, if you're buying on the open on these gap up days, I don't want to say you're doing the wrong thing, but it's very hard on gap up days to kind of chase. You want to be a net seller. In my opinion, again, the video is always for information purposes only, but I think you want to sell and then kind of sit on your hands a bit and kind of wait to see how things develop throughout the day. And then if you like some things at the end of the day that you were looking for, then you can kind of take note of what names kind of hung around the highs of the day and didn't really come down versus what names that really gave back a lot. So, just going through sectors, the solar names actually went up. So solar, I would say the first option activity that we saw of the day. This was actually one of the names that I had in the member watch list. I didn't jump on this name on the open. I did look at it, but I didn't jump on this name because I just had too much. I was busy, managing positions, and that's also a testament to, if you're bogged down with managing positions. So today was nice because I was able to take a lot of those positions, or some of those positions off. I didn't bail out of, my whole portfolio or anything like that, anything close to that. But I just took profits where I wanted to. But sometimes if you're doing that, right, sometimes you miss the new trades. And we talked about this in the weekend video. This put in a nice bull flag, and they were off to the races with calls in this one, Sun Run. So really nice move out of that flag. We called that as a flag perfectly. And that was one of the most active names. So solar, you could see, solar, finished. Not only did it finish up on the day, but it actually went higher. The solar ETF went higher from the open too. Financials did pretty well too today too. They hung in there. They did not give back any of their gains. Staples finished up 0.5%, but really no major volatility. Software, interesting too. Some names I thought came in pretty hard, but other names, we'll go through a couple of those software names in just a second. But the software ETF finished up 1.5% and just only gave back 10 basis points, so not that bad. Then if you look at the other end of the spectrum, notice you have a lot of names that kind of gave back a little bit. But oil finished just in the red, but started the day up 2.5%, gave it all back. Aerospace and defense, I think maybe Boeing had to do with some of that. That also finished in the red. The semiconductors, you could see, like I said, they were up. I think even more. They started the day up 4.3%. I think that's the biggest. I was listening to Bloomberg earlier, and they said that that's the biggest gap up ever for the semiconductor ETF. So that gave back some of those, but still, up 2.8% on the day. So again, it's really difficult to kind of look at your P&L at the beginning of the day and then at the end of the day, because at the end, if you just looked at it once, at the end of the day, you're probably fine. But if you looked at the beginning of the day, you probably had some bigger numbers there based on how the price action, and unless you did what I talked about, which was taking profits right around the open. China internet names finished up 2.4%, but they did get back more than 1% of the gains. So again, this is really, looking at it this way is really kind of a little bit of a pessimistic look. But the reason why I do it, I'm not a pessimistic person. The reason why I do this is so it kind of keeps me grounded a little bit. Seeing how many names or how many groups give back from the open tells me I don't really want to be adding positions on the open. And again, this day was a little bit different or more dramatic because we gapped out. But Amazon hung in there. I thought Amazon, held some strength for the day and actually closed. Kind of rallied a little bit into the close. I did structure a trade. This is one thing that I think looks pretty interesting. It's got to break. Now I kind of put a preemptive trade on here because I think it's got to break 1936. Now, of course, when you're waiting for this to happen, sometimes you're gonna be a little bit late and miss profits. So sometimes I like to start trades, but this is leaning to the upside, and 1936 will be that breakout level on the for the value area for the month of July. Next, just again looking at the FANG stocks, Facebook. Interesting. What did Facebook really finish flat for the day? Gave back. That was the worst performer out of the FANG stocks. Also, Apple. Tough trade for Apple because Apple. Going into today, just hate to see names give back so much from the open. But I think Apple looks pretty interesting if it can maintain. This is a name that we talked about, I think, pre-open as well. But if it can maintain, 201.43 is my level. It can kind of hang around here. It might set up for a nice little trade for this one. Finishing up here, I mentioned I would talk a little bit about the software names. Microsoft has been kind of digesting after a nice run to it. Salesforce finished, just gave back a little bit of those gains. Coupa Software has been probably the star performer out of the software names. There was some call activity last week in Coupa Software, but this is very strong at the 52-week highs, and I own this name in cash, so I'm cool with that. Again, I don't have a huge position on in cash, but just participating. So really nice, and that one I'm just kind of staying the course. That's in my long-term portfolio, by the way. Twilio just continues to really not act well for the time being. I think keep your eye on these names, but they're still going through this for the most part digestion. I do think Twilio, as I said last week, I do think Twilio wakes up, but you just got to be a little bit of patience with it. I also structured a trade for Vive, which I think is working slightly. I put that trade on. We talked about that over the weekend. I actually sent that out on public Twitter as a freebie trade idea. Maybe looking for this thing to get to 169. So it's off and moving to the right way. Do I have that one in here? Oh, maybe I need to add that to the spreadsheet. Also, ServiceNow, which was kind of didn't really participate much in the rally last week, actually finished higher than the open, up 3.3%. Nice play in ServiceNow. China internet names all over the place. Interesting, these names. SE is something that I own. Actually bought a little bit of strength last week, or just slight digestion after we've seen repeat call buying. Managed to finish up 3%. Also, BZUN finished up 7%. This is a name that I owned a couple weeks back, and shame on me for selling this. I think 55 was my target with that VPOC, and it got almost there. Very strong in this one. I owned some JD. I did not take any target. Maybe foolish of me not to take any targets in this one, but I've got a target up here, and that's $32. So again, I own stock. I'm not in a rush. I don't have any. You don't have any maturity on stock. So that's kind of the summary for the day. I am going to go through. I mentioned one name that saw option activity that was run. Twitter also saw some calls today. You know, could be. It was kind of suffered last week with some headlines. Took out a Virgin point of control, so maybe a move up to the top of value. I did not take that one today. Also, Disney saw a little bit of calls today. They also mentioned that on CNBC, their halftime show. Very light calls in this one, but repeat. Just so that's what, three names, two more. Burke B actually saw some calls. I looked at this name a couple times today. It's not jumping. If it hadn't run so much, I generally think this is a nice name to play, but I feel like I didn't catch it, and it's moved significantly, but $7-8, I think, from where I would look for a breakout of value. So they came in a couple times for this one. Also, a semiconductor name, Cree, also saw a little bit of call activity too. Notice some names that in option activity, right? So, for example, if you look at Qualcomm, which still finished up what, 1.9%, which is not bad, but look at that big red candle. And if you look at the 5-minute bar, you can kind of see that they were net seller. They were selling into the strength in this one. Also, AMD too, which I view as one of the better semi names. Also, it looks like there was some selling going on in that one. Now, versus look at this one. MCHP, which we've seen multiple call buyers come in, finished on the damn highs, right? So you have to ask yourself on these days like this, what's important. And I think something like this, where they don't see a huge amount of selling, I think the chart looks pretty good. Even after a 5.4% move, there's a VPOC all the way up here at 101, but I think that strength could continue in MCHP. Okay, so there's five names for that saw option activity. Other than that, just to kind of end the video here, for my game plan for this quarter, right? We start the month over, right? We've got a whole new month, July. We've got a whole new quarter. Regardless if you killed it the first half of the year, or if you felt like you needed to improve on some things, you could basically wipe the slate clean and say, hey, July, concentrate on being concentrate on being profitable for July. I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing, and we were talking a little bit about this at the in the trading room right at the end of the day. I really want to be focused. I don't want to be all over the place with positions. Like I don't want to be sloppy with positions. I really want to wait for so that's why I did not jump on any option activity today because I would view today's option activity, the 5 names that I mentioned, is like, they're okay, they're not bad. I would say the run, which I've got on the left, was probably the best thing, but sometimes it's just a little bit of bad timing, and I just didn't want to chase a name after it was going up. So there'll be plenty of opportunities, and I think being selective, waiting for your pitch, playing in poker, you only play the best hands. There's going to be some great signals that we're going to see. You just have to kind of be patient and wait for them. And so that's my game plan, is to not overtrade. I don't want to just pay my broker, right? The more you trade, your broker gets paid. I think really I want to be kind of settled down. I'm going to be mixing in stock positions a little bit more, so I can have patience with them and let them get to targets without worrying about theta decay, on an option position. So I'm pretty excited for the month ahead. I do think, even this week with low volume, sometimes we'll see, a quick order that comes in. And I think it's going to be good for scalping this week too. So I'll leave it there for the day. I think a pretty good day overall, despite the little bit of fade. And that's all about strategy and using a little bit of experience. So guys, have a great day and see you bright and early back tomorrow morning in the trading room. Have a great night, everybody.